up, guys? Welcome back to season 2 of How to Get Away with the JD. It feels so good to be back, giving you guys a new season. I've missed you guys. Hopefully you missed me too, the content. Thank you to everyone who subscribed to anywhere you get your podcast, the YouTube channel, all of the above, shared the page. Oh, if you guys don't know, we also have an Instagram page, so make sure you guys check out How to Get Away with the JD on Instagram and follow so you don't miss out on any content. It feels good to be back with you guys for a whole new season. Quarantine has been crazy. I hope everyone's been staying safe. I hope your school years are going well. We're in 3L year, baby. This is it, the final stretch. And I realized since I started the podcast, I haven't talked to you guys. I haven't given you the stories. So much has happened since the last episode, which was still during COVID, but it just feels like it's been years. So I'm taking the first episode of the second season to get real. Tell you guys a little bit about my story, how I got to where I am now in 3L year. And, a lot of it has there's definitely some things you can take away as to don't do. Just don't do it. And then I think there's some things that we can learn from each other on. So yeah. But welcome again. Thank you to everyone who supported the show. To all my new viewers, welcome. You're in for a ride. I do have some treats this season. Some of the episodes are definitely going to be a little bit more interesting, a little bit more raw, real and exposed. And that's what I want to give you guys. I want to give you guys the real look into law school, into the law profession, connect you with a lot of different people. So you may see some same faces this season, but the goal is to also bring you guys some new faces with some more topics. So stay tuned. We'll be doing every other week this time around because it is school. It is COVID. I do need a break here and there. But yeah, without further ado, let's get down. So this episode, I went through a lot of, it was either motivate, nevertheless, he persisted, but I really want to call it motivate because there's so much that has happened between my start of my legal journey, my legal professional journey to now that I feel can be motivational. I don't really consider myself a motivational speaker or a motivational person. But there's a lot of stuff that's happened to me in the past couple of weeks alone where I've been told that I should consider telling my story. So here we are giving you guys the inside look as to who Phelan is, how Phelan got to where he is, and hopefully somebody can benefit from it, right? All right, so I'm going to get starting with before the Lsat. So I graduated the University of Missouri in 2016 with the degree in biochemistry, so a bachelor's of science in biochemistry. And before I had graduated, if anybody's watched this, I know I've said this a couple of times, I wanted to go to med school. And around my junior, maybe senior year of college, I was sitting around do I really want to go to med school? Is med school for me? Why med school? And so I was going through this whole existential crisis or whatever. And I realized that med school wouldn't have been for me. I would have been doing it for other people, for other purposes. And that didn't sit right with me. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to med school. And then I was like, well, what the fuck? Excuse my language. I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with my life? People tell you all the time, oh, you have to have a plan. This is, 22. You have to have a plan. What are you going to do next? You're going home for breaks and things. And everyone's like, oh, well, what are you going to do with your degree? Or where are you going? This, that, and the third. And that was really stressing me out. And I had a lot of anxiety because for once I didn't have a plan. And so around my second semester senior year, I was looking at jobs, trying to apply for jobs, but I hadn't had a formal internship during my undergrad career, and that's because I can blame it on a lot of people. My advisor was trash. I never saw my advisor. The only reason I graduated in 4 years was because I did what I had to do. in terms of researching my degree to get out of here. I had no support in that area. My parents didn't have a biochemistry degree, so nobody really knew what a science internship looked like. I didn't have any connection. So, I mean, I can say a lot, but I didn't have a formal internship in that regard. And so I began looking for jobs, realizing maybe I wasn't qualified, and it became this whole thing. And I was depressed. I was depressed for a while. And so when I started applying for jobs, I got lucky, and the person, and my pledge grandfather, he told me that he was leaving his job. He planned on leaving, and that I should apply. And it worked out because I had been working with the Office of Admissions since my freshman year as an ambassador, and then I co-chaired that organization, and then I was a tour guide. So I said, okay, this makes sense. Let's do it. So I applied, went through the screening process, 2 rounds of interviews, and boom, I get hired a little bit after graduation. So even after I graduated, I didn't have a job. So I think like maybe a month or so after graduation, here I am, landed this job. Pretty decent pay. Can't even argue with you. I worked remotely in Chicago, worked from home, traveled to high schools, talking to students, recruiting students, getting to know South Chicago, South suburbs, a little bit of Indiana, just really learning and taking the time to figure out me accidentally. Kids tell you all the time when you meet them, like, oh my God, I want to be a basketball player. Or like, oh, I want to be this engineer, like this doctor, this lawyer. And there was a part of me that was like super jealous of them because here I am at 22 with the college degree. And I don't know what I want to do with my life, but they have like these grand plans. And I was sitting like, wow, I guess that was me at one point, and now I don't know what happened. I don't know where I went wrong. And so in my 2 years of working that job and talking to students, meeting their parents, and like figuring things out, I was like, well, what's next? Like the question always in my mind was, what's next? What's next? This is not your long-term goal. So around maybe the end of my first year in the job, I said, okay, well, let's figure this out. So I started doing some career researching, talking to some people, and I found the law, right? And everyone watch, like, if anyone knows me, and if you don't follow me, you guys should. But I was really big on Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder. I used to watch the older episodes of Law and Order and Law and Order SVU. Shout out to my peoples. But yeah, so like I had known about the law. My father wanted to go to law school, but he never did. He ended up being a state trooper, dean of students, the whole nine. So like I've had the idea, like the premise of law, but I never had any other touchings. Nobody in my family is a lawyer, so I'm a first generation law student. Nobody was there to like really guide, and fine. So I started doing my research, and I realized that a lot of what law is on its face is people skills, right? And given the job that I had at the time, I thought I had pretty decent people skills. And so I started looking and researching. I ended up being able to shadow a family friend from church in her firm that she's now named partner in. And I got to see a little bit of like criminal defense work, white collar stuff. And then a family friend is also an appellate court judge in Chicago. So I sat in with her, got to see a little bit about what she was doing. I said, okay, so this really looks like oral skills. And I had nothing. This is before I knew about the writing aspect. Seems about a lot of oral skill and a lot of reading. I don't really care to read that much. And like, that's just a transparent moment, but I can read, right? Critical thinking, the whole 9 yards. So I said, okay, let's figure out what this is, what I can do with this. I ended up researching a little bit more about what it takes to become a lawyer, discovered the Lsat. I had already known about the bar, and I thought that was the only test that you had to take. But discovered the Lsat, discovered it was basically like reapplying to college all over again. Transcripts, letters of recommendation, the whole 9 yards. So I said, okay, what the hell? Here we go again. So I took the Lsat on a whim the first time. Mind you, I'm working a full-time job, so I don't have time to take like a course. I really don't have time to apply myself to study like that because I'm ripping and running on the highway between 5 to 6 days out of the week for maybe 12 hours a day talking to these students and parents. So it was just like juggling a lot. So I took the LSAT on a whim the first time. I did decent. And I will leave decent up to you and your discretion or whatever, because I tried to look it up for you guys to tell you, but I don't even remember my login to the account. So I did decent the first time, but it wasn't what I wanted. So I said, okay, what the hell? So at that point, I had started talking to some people who were in law school or had graduated law school. And shout out to Kamaya and PJ. They had LSAT prep books that they hadn't been used to study or whatever. And Kamaya actually had a Google Drive of like old exam questions from the LSAT. And so they gave me all this stuff. Like I had mounds of books. And so I'm sitting here studying in between visits in the car. I'm on weekends trying to take these tests, trying to do time practice tests. My mom can tell you, like I would sit there at the counter and I would try to do like the multiple choice. And it was so much. Like it was a lot. And then I took it again. Fun story. When I went for my second LSAT, it was on a Saturday. It was early in the morning, and I knew where the testing center. I thought I knew where the testing center was because I had seen like the community college all the time, like been there and all that other stuff. So I go to this community college. I get there an hour before the exam so I can check and get comfortable and everything. I'm walking around the campus and I can't find the building that's on my LSAT ticket. And then I'm talking, and then I just so happen to go to like the security guard office or whatever. And they're like, oh no, this isn't here. This is like our satellite campus, which is further down the road near Tinley. And I said, bro, what the fuck? At this point, again, excuse my language, I had 30 minutes or so before the exam began. So it was like me and maybe I think 3 or 4 other people who had went to the community college. And so we're like running to our cars, getting in, speeding. Like I'm surprised. God was on my side on this one because there was no cops out. But we're speeding to get to this testing center. We walk in with 1 minute to spare before that test begins. And luckily, somebody at the community college had called ahead and said, hey, these people are coming. So they were understanding. So I get in, frazzled, extremely nervous, take the second exam. I actually scored lower the second time than I did the first time. And that's just me being honest with you. And I was like, well, what the hell? Like, how does this happen? It wasn't by much. I think it was by 2 or 3 points. But regardless, I was like, well, okay. I guess I'm relying on my first score again, which was decent to get into places, but I wanted more for scholarship purposes. So I started I started looking to apply to law schools. I had no help. I'm literally a student. I'm not a student. I am a young professional in the world trying to apply for school. I didn't have like the advisors or anything, which I mean, I'm used to not having. And so I'm sitting here applying. I'm calling law schools left and right. I was calling law schools left and right. I was like, hey, hi, my name is Phelan. I'm a prospective student. And I was just wondering if you had like any application fee waivers or if there's any way I can get any more information about your institution. When I say I at least made 15 to 20 calls to different institutions, and I received out of that 15 to 20, over half application fee waivers, but then also a lot of brochures and things outlining like what they look for and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, well, that's one cost down, because for those who don't know, or for those who are thinking about law school, there are fees. So the LSAT is one fee in itself, and I took it twice. So that's money right there. But then as you're applying to law school, you have your application fees. So the application fee is completely separate from your LSAC fee, which is them sending in like your packets, so the letters of recommendation, the transcripts, the whole 9 yards. They send that stuff for you. It's a separate fee every time you send it to a different school. So it adds up quickly, right? It's expensive. So I was trying to knock out as much money as possible in terms of what I had to spend. So I'm calling schools, going left and right, doing this, that, and the third. So I finally sending my applications. I'm finally doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. And yeah, at that point, it was just a waiting game. And waiting is hard. I thought waiting for acceptances and denials was something, but then you get to law school and you have to like wait for grades and your whole future hinges on passing the class. So I mean, like there's different levels of anxiety to them, but they both come with anxiety nonetheless. And so I'm sitting here waiting for these letters to figure out, okay, am I going? Am I staying in this job? Like, what am I doing? And man, memories. So I started off with, I want to say a denial. Yeah, I think I got denied from, two schools out the gate. And so right then it was this woe is me moment of, I'm not going to law school. Oh my God. Like I'm awful. Like this, that, and the third. It was hard. Wow. And then I got my first acceptance, I think after those 2 denials. And that was, yeah, I got my first acceptance after my 2 denials with a pretty decent scholarship. And I said, okay, if all else fails, I have 1 school in my back pocket. And then I got waitlisted at 2 schools directly after that, maybe a week after that, actually. And then I got my last 2 acceptances sometime after that. So at that point, I knew I was going to law school. And I had, in the forethought of my mind, this is something I always try to tell people, apply early just in case. Like I applied pretty much when all applications were open. So I applied, actually around this time in 2017. Wow, yeah. So I applied around this time in 2017 and it was nerve-wracking, but I didn't hear back until January. Yeah, I didn't hear back until December, January, and February. Maybe 1 was in March, but I don't recall. But just like that time period of waiting and waiting and waiting. And so from there, I should probably backtrack. Let me backtrack. One of the denials was actually my dream school. And this says a lot. I wanted to go to that school so bad. I sent an email to the lady, which was at that time either the dean or the assistant dean of admissions, asking if I could schedule a meeting just to figure out, just in case I didn't get in anywhere else, what I could have done better on my application. Is there any way I could improve this, that, and the third? So I send that email. And her assistant says, oh, absolutely, XYZ, we'll have no problem meeting with you. Do you have any availability? So we set up a meeting for a Friday. I think I was back on campus for something, but regardless, I had called her at our scheduled time and we were talking. And she told me that, in a nutshell, while my application looked really good and I was really, I seemed like a quality fit, she didn't see that I was worth fighting for in terms of like the class. Because like I told you guys, I did decent on the LSAT, but it wasn't in the 160s. I'll say that. But it was definitely decent enough to be put at the school that I'm thinking of. And so she was telling me that I wasn't worth fighting for. While I had glowing recommendations and they really enjoyed my personal statement, she didn't see me as a fit. And so she didn't put the fight up for me, and it didn't make sense for me at the time with the class that they were trying to build to be at their institution. And I had to have been 23 at that time. And so I'm sitting on the phone listening to her say this, processing, and you can, like, I felt my spirit sink. But of course you can't let them know. So I say thank you. I'm like, thank you for your time. I call my mom instantly. I call my mom crying, really upset, and she's asking me what's wrong. And so I tell her everything that she says, and if anybody knows my mother, she don't play when it comes to her kids. She was really upset and disgusted at the fact that somebody could say that in that position to a student, even barring like our relationship, but like to a student. And that hurt me a lot. And from there, when I got my first acceptance, when I got my first acceptance after that, I said, okay, all right, well, I couldn't even enjoy it like that. Really, like, it disrupted my spirit. When I can't stress this enough to you guys. And this is something, and I'll get into this a little later, but this is something that I want everyone to know. Like, don't let people define you and your trajectory, because that's how she felt. And for some reason, that's how it got pushed into the universe with that institution. I'm in law school, 3L, about to graduate, this whole 9 yards, and we'll get there. But a delay is not a denial. And I think that's really been the theme of my law school career. I've been denied. And then the right thing comes at the right time. So then I end up getting a phone call. I get from Michelle Heck, who used to be the dean of Mizzou Law, telling me congratulations, you've been accepted and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, Mizzou? Again? Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm weighing my 3 schools. I'm looking at my scholarship opportunities at these 3 schools, the ranking of the 3 schools. I'm doing a lot. And I was like, woo, all right. Looks like it's Mizzou again. And part of why I chose to come back, and I know a lot of people ask me about, like, why Mizzou or why Missouri, or like, how did you pick a law school? I know that's a lot of people's question. I chose Mizzou ultimately for the atmosphere. When I came here again, and I was looking at this completely different than what I did when I was looking at undergrad school institutions. When I came back, I met people who seemed genuinely invested, and I'm not just talking students, professors at the time, who seemed genuinely invested in me, what I wanted, and how I was going to get there. And between that, the scholarship money, and then at least being familiar with the environment, because law school is a little stressful. So I had some bearings in Columbia already. So it wasn't like a complete reset. If I went to like Atlanta or DC and had nobody. So I had some system I could get home. So these were things that I was thinking about when I started making my decision, and how I ended up here at Mizzou. So here we are at Mizzou. As a 1L, get the apartment out of there. Go fast forward through orientation. Oh my God. Nobody prepared me for law school. When I say, you guys, people have probably told you, or especially like my law students, you guys know, oh, law school is different. Like, it's going to require so much work. Whatever myth or story or whatever you've heard about law school, you're not prepared. There is no way you can be prepared for this. I don't care if your mother is an attorney or your father is an attorney. Everyone's journey is different, right? And so I came in not knowing. I came in not having much of anything. And so when I started, it was trying to find friends and classes and reading and juggling. Oh, so much in 1L year. So when I came, I got placed into what's called Legal Foundations here. Well, what is now called Legal Foundations. I forgot what it was called prior to that. but it's for like extra help to make sure that you're doing what you're doing. So we had TAs for contracts, Civ Pro, torts, basically like your bigger, and this was my first semesters only. So like your bigger classes, depending on what you have, your first semester of 1L. And so I had those on top of my classes and then trying to juggle. And if you know me, I can't sit my ass down. So I'm trying to join student organizations and look around and do things. So my 1L year now is kind of a blur, just because 2L year was a lot. But 1L year, I was trying to stay, like I was reading everything, like literally everything, because I didn't know what to expect or like what they wanted. So I'm highlighting books up and down, just like, okay, that sounds important. That sounds important. And it took a minute for me to figure out like the issue spotting. So like, what's the issue in this case? The procedural posture, the facts, all that stuff came easy, but like parsing out the issue and then being able to not only see the issue, but see the why. So like the reasoning and the holding, those things, well, the holding is obvious. That came pretty easy. But like then being able to argue it, my 1L year taught me more about thinking, I think, than any of my science degree ever could. But it was interesting because coming in as a 1L, I also didn't know how to write. I didn't know how to legal research and write. Science writing is completely different. I mean, I think this can be said for almost anything. Whatever you did in undergrad, that writing is completely different from what you'll do in law school. And for me, it was a complete change because how they expect you to write in law school is not how they expect you to write when I'm writing like science papers or different things like that. So my hardest class my 1L year was legal research and writing. And I just didn't know. And I hadn't had to use grammar mechanics and different things like that. So I was a fish out of water, basically. Yeah, no, that was hard. So that was my biggest insecurity for a while in law school, is that, oh my God, all these other people are smarter than me. They can write better than me. I'm never like, God, it's so hard being like a minority in law school, but also being a minority at a predominantly white institution. You just feel like, at least for me, that you have to always be on, right? You can't have an off day. And so 1L year, I'll never forget, like when I first met my faculty advisor, he took me and one other person to lunch. So we're talking, he was telling me like, you have to make sure that you're doing this, that, and the third. You'll never know who's in the building. You have to make sure you look presentable. So my 1L year, I was never in sweats, not during the week. I had always been in jeans or like some type of casual khaki, something like that, with different shirts. Like I was just dressing because I felt like I had to do these things, right? Like I had to always be present and doing and showing and putting on. And it was a lot. But yeah, so my biggest insecurity, I would have to say, was my writing my 1L year. And that translated into my 1L grades. Nobody stresses to you, like, if you don't know, like class ranking things. They say it's a competition, the whole 9 yards. Well, I didn't make the top 10. Did not make the top 10 out the gate. And I was like, oh, snap. But then you also start hearing about people who are getting dismissed and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, well, okay, all right. Well, here I am in this happy medium, but like, what the hell? Like, how do I improve? So winter break of 1L year, going back into before the second semester, a lot of thinking and figuring out how to retool and repurpose myself for the second semester, because I couldn't get kicked out. Like I just couldn't. Like in my heart of hearts, I had to keep fighting. So that's what I did. But I'm gonna take a break, let you guys hear from our sponsors, and then we will be back with more of this journey that is my, I guess, legal career. All right. So we come back, second semester of 1L, and so much happened. So much happened. Moot court. All 1Ls, I'm pretty sure, are required to do a 1L moot court. And when I did my 1L moot court, at that point I had been competing in like our intra-school competitions and whatnot. So I had done competitions. I had made it to the finals in at least my second semester. I made it to the finals in every competition I did. Never won, which is fine. But at that point I was burnt out. I was tired. I was ready to be done. But this 1L moot court competition was like a thing that you had to do for advocacy and research for a grade. And so I said, okay, all right, let's just do it, get it over with, because you don't have to go to the finals. As long as you compete and finish, you're good. So I compete, end up making it to the finals. And the next day, the person that I went against was very upset, or seemed very upset, about the fact that I had beat them at moot court, and they were going around saying like, oh, I don't understand how he beat me, or more to the effect of got bold, and asked me to see my scores because they felt that they had done better than me. And I said, sure, like, I'm not stressing this. I don't want to be here. You can have it. So I mean, like, you'll find people in law school that are just like, you just have to put up with them because they're your classmates, they're your colleagues. But that's rubbed me the wrong way. So we get to the time for applying for jobs in 1L year. I'm applying for jobs. I'm going on different interviews, left and right. I had a couple of interviews with some firms, some big firms, some boutique firms, and nothing was biting. Got one call back out of all of that. That didn't even bite. And I went to our school's little career fair thing. Nothing was going my way. And I was like, what the like, I need a job. Like, I have to have a job. This is something that they stress to you. And I had got on our career website and saw this job posting for, I forgot what it was, but it was a fellowship. Okay. So it was a fellowship for a magistrate judge in Jefferson City. And I didn't want to apply, and I had put it off. And I ended up applying for the job because somebody else had asked me if I had put in the application maybe 2 days before it was due. So I distinctly remember this. I applied for that job during my 8 a.m. property class, not paying attention to property, not paying attention to the job application. I submit this application or whatever. Maybe a week before spring break, I get a call from a Professor Henson, for those of you who know, asking me, hey, did you apply for this job? And I said, yeah, I did. And so he said, oh God, this is so embarrassing. He said, yeah, do you have a minute to talk? And I said, sure. So he was basically telling me how him and the judge that I had applied for were friends, and that he had called him because he was one of Professor Henson was one of my references at the time, asking him what can he say about me and all this other stuff. And because I hadn't reached out to Professor Henson or like talked with him in a while and whatnot, he told him he couldn't say anything about me. And he called me out of the courtesy to, one, tell me that, and two, tell me I needed to fix that. And so we had talked on the phone for a little bit and whatnot. And he had asked me why I wanted the job, why I applied. And we were just talking, and I was telling him the reality. And he said, well, I'm going to put in a word for you, but know that my word is this to this man. And so you have to deliver. So I get a call maybe a few days later for an interview, drive down to Jefferson City before I go home for spring break. I get in this interview. I get into this interview with Judge Willie Epps and John Warren, who was his clerk at the time. And the first question was, what job did you apply for? And I thought that was a rhetorical question. Turns out I submitted a cover letter that was addressed to the Jackson County Bar. Association because I had just applied for a job in their office maybe a month before. And like I told you, when I was applying for this job, the morning of my property class, not paying attention, I submitted the same letterhead and everything. The content was different. The header and everything was the same. And from there, the interview wasn't really an interview. It was me being read the riot act for the better part of 15 minutes. And then it was a lot, right? And so he had asked like, what I have to say for myself? How did this happen? Like, and I'm not a person who makes excuses. Like, I fucked up. And I will say that. Like, I told him, I said, I messed up, but that's not who I am. And I don't want that one moment to define me. And I told him, if you don't hire me, okay, I understand. I probably would look at somebody who did the same thing I did oddly as well. But if you do hire me, I will bust my ass and prove to you why I should be here. It worked. Literally 3 hours after that interview, as I'm driving home, I get a phone call saying, the job is yours. This is, John will be in contact with you. Well, John called me. He said he'll be in contact with like the start date, the paperwork and all that other stuff. Nothing but God, because let's be honest, I fucked up. Like I really want people to understand this. Your network is your net worth. And sometimes people will fight for you without you knowing it and without you having the will to fight for yourself. And in that moment, for me, in that 1L year, that 1L summer going into my 2L year, that's what I needed. That was my wake-up call. I like to pride myself on detail, and for me to have gotten that and let that slip through and then have an interview where I'm sitting in front of a judge who probably thought I was incompetent at the time and his law clerk who thought I was incompetent at the time, such an experience. So I went through the summer, busted my ass in that office to prove myself and show that I had what it took to actually be there. And at the end of the summer, when I got my feedback, they were impressed. From night and day, they thought I wouldn't have made it, didn't have it in me to see what I could do, see how, not only that, how I could write and things. It became this whole thing. And even in the summer, as I got to know the judge a little bit better, and he was trying to coach me through like applying for journals and all this other stuff. It taught me a lot, because that was the first time that I got to sit in front of a black man who went to Harvard, did everything. And I started to see myself. I started to know my weakness. I started to see my flaws. I started to get it. So I go into 2L year, associate member of a law review, sitting on the BOSA, sitting on our local BOSA exec board, sitting on the Midwest Black Law Students Association exec board. All these things, right? 2L year was a shit show. And I'm not talking grades. I'm talking personally, like juggling all this other stuff, because I wanted to be involved. I needed to get my grades up. I needed to make myself marketable. And I was trying to go from setting myself back to getting to the front. And so I was doing a lot. OCI season for your 2L year is typically in the fall. So I'm starting to apply for these jobs and things. I'm getting denied again, denied. And so I'm just like, bro, what the fuck? Like, I know I'm not that bad of a person. These grades are not that bad. This rank is not that bad. What are you doing? If anybody knows, my 2L year, I was depressed. I probably cried the most 2L year. 3L year is still going, but I shouldn't be crying because I ain't got nothing to do. But I cried the most in my 2L year. It was a lot. It was a lot going on. And I felt like no matter what I was doing, I couldn't measure up. I couldn't meet these expectations. And it was frustrating. Like, I was genuinely frustrated, right? So I started keep applying for jobs. And I run across this job, again, on our career website that I technically based off the job posting didn't qualify for. Mind you, I've been applying for some firms. I had got maybe 2 callbacks in the beginning of my 2L year for some firms, and it didn't pan out. And so I applied for this job, and I was like, okay, I don't think I'm gonna get it, but at this point I have nothing, and all these other people around me are like getting callbacks, getting jobs, acceptances. Like, I'm comparing myself to everybody else, and I'm sitting here in like a frantic panic. Like, what about me? What about me? I'm tired of. I got so tired of cheering for everybody else, and I know it sounds bad, but we're all human. Like, I can be proud of people, but it starts to make you wonder, well, what about my success? Like, what about me? What am I doing wrong? What do they have that I don't have? It was a lot of that for me. And so I applied for this job, not thinking I was going to get it. So I keep applying for other things. Sure enough, got invited to the campus interview, and to this day, and my supervisor knows this, I feel like I only got invited because there was only 4 of us that applied. And so to make his time worth it, he invited everybody. But so I'm sitting in this interview with this man, Jeffrey, and it didn't feel like an interview. It didn't feel stuffy. It didn't feel rigid. It felt right. And I say that now, and I'll say it again later, but it felt right. Jeffrey and I were talking about everything under the sun. We talked about grades for a hot second. That wasn't anything. We talked about life. Like, we just talked. And at the end, I think we went over maybe by 20 minutes or so in the interview. And if anybody follows, like, if you follow me on Twitter, you would see that I walked out of that interview, and the first thing I tweeted was, this is the first time that I had an interview in law school that just felt right. Like, it just felt good. It felt genuine. And I had claimed that I was going to get that job for the summer. Nobody could tell me different. And sure enough, 3 or so weeks later, I get a phone call asking me to come down to Bloomington, Illinois, to the office for a second round interview. And I'm like, gone. At this point, I had applied to another firm in St. Louis, and then another boutique firm through another friend who had told me to put in an application because they were looking. So I had those 2 pending, going to go to this interview in Bloomington. And I walk in the day of my interview. I'm like, all right, don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up. We're like, we're this close. I don't know what we've done wrong in all of the callbacks. Don't you mess this up. So I'm sitting here. My first round interview was with Jeffrey, I think Sharon, and no, it actually just might have been Jeffrey and Sharon. And so we were just talking. They were asking me questions about like law school, what I had been doing, what I had been writing for journal, all this other stuff. And like, we were just talking. And then I had a meeting after that with senior leadership. Again, it was more of a conversation. They had like real questions and real scenarios and things, but I didn't feel uncomfortable. I felt at home. I felt like myself. I felt as a person. So I got that intern. So leave, all this other stuff. Again, the waiting game. I actually got the internship. I walked out of class. I don't remember what class it was. I walked out of class to take that phone call. And when I found out that I got the job, and when I tell you all to this day that I'm shook about that, that was a defining moment of my 2L year for me. Because I had gone through a lot. And even in the post that I made when I got the job, I was very depressed around that time because a lot was going on personally, but then also like even in school, deny. Like, denials will eat at you. I don't really care what anybody says, and it just really depends on the person. A denial will eat at a person, especially when you know what you're capable of and you know what you can bring to the table. And that's really what it was for me. I knew who I was. I knew what I could do, and it was getting frustrating that nobody else could see it or seem to be able to see it at that time. And then I got hired at State Farm. I can tell you guys all about like the shit show of 2L year and juggling like student organizations and having to plan different things. But I will boil it down to say this. Choose organizations, one, that you want to see yourself running one day, and two, that you're passionate about. But three, sometimes you have to make the sacrifice. Journal was a sacrifice for me because I knew people were looking for a journal. Now, the jury's out on a split onto like, is journal necessary versus is journal unnecessary? That can be a whole nother podcast episode. Stay tuned. But in the interim, those are just things to think about. You don't want to have to do too much. You want to do the right amount for you. And for me, I'm always a person who goes. And sometimes I forget I can't do everything. And so that was part of my issue. My 2L year, I felt like I had to do everything and have my hand on everything. And I didn't. Yeah, so I got the job at State Farm right before, I want to say, Thanksgiving break, maybe. Yeah, that sounds right. Right before Thanksgiving break, if not after that. It was before Christmas. Okay. So I have a job going to second semester of 2L year. I'm just like, whew, all right, let's just get these grades and be done. And then we got kicked off campus from COVID. Yeah, man. E-learning. You know what? I wasn't a fan of e-learning then, and I think it was because so much had happened so fast and nobody had a plan. Right now, I would love to be at home taking class on this here couch, watching Girlfriends on the TV that's right behind, like right in front of me. But I have a mix of classes, so it's cool or whatever. So I go through 2L summer, working remotely for State Farm. Originally, I was supposed to be in Bloomington doing all this other stuff, but I'm fortunate enough where they didn't drop the internship, and I got to stay here in my apartment, work, they sent the materials and things. And that was an experience. That's an experience I will forever treasure. Because I learned, now while I learned about myself my 1L year during my internship with Judge Epps, this year with my internship with State Farm, I realized I can do anything I put my mind to, not a problem. And being able to touch different sections of corporate law and meeting different people and understanding that there are people out there who are genuinely invested in seeing me succeed or me succeed and want me to be there. Like Jeffrey was the biggest cheerleader that I think I've had outside of my mom and my family in a long time. Like Jeffrey was pushing and wanted to make sure I was not only comfortable, but that I felt challenged. And that's just, I don't feel like a lot of places give you that. A lot of people don't really care for your success. They want you to do the job that's set out in front of you. Jeffrey wanted you to do the job, understand why you were doing the job, and how you can improve the job that you were doing. And for me, I will forever be grateful for Jeffrey. So Jeffrey, if you're watching this, because I know you probably are, thanks, my guy. So that summer translated into going back into what is now 3L year, which is a hybrid situation, but with a job offer. So State Farm ended up offering me a position, and I accepted. So after graduation, I'll be going back to Illinois. Thank you, Jesus. To work for State Farm as in-house counsel. And for those who don't know, like who are thinking about law school, in-house jobs coming straight out of law school are extremely rare, mostly rare, hard to come by. I'll say hard to come by, as opposed to like firm jobs or anything like that. So I say, like, here we are, 3L year. I'm ready to graduate. If we're being honest with you, I'm kind of bored out of my mind. But I say all of this to say, like I said, going back to it, a delay is not a denial. I have seen doors shut in my face from scholarships that I've applied for that other people have gotten, to jobs that I've applied for that other people have gotten, from not even just law school, like other people's success around me, that wasn't my time or my success. And it's okay. Not everything in front of you is right for you. And that has taken me so long to understand. Because like, depending on the school you go to, and most people probably know this, they're always telling you, oh, you want to do journal. Oh, you want to go to the law firm. Oh, you want this, that, and the third. Sometimes you have to figure out what you want, what you're okay with. You're competing with your classmates, but you're competing with yourself at the end of the day. And you are your biggest hurdle to overcome. You are your biggest advocate when you need it. You dictate a lot of your altitude, I should say. Now, your network does matter, and I would definitely encourage you to get to know professors, get to know like local judges and attorneys if you can. I don't know what that looks like in COVID right now, but if you can, like, go to the different things, go to like the virtual meetups or whatever they have in your area. Get involved in for Black students, get involved in your regional Black Law Students Association. Get involved in the National Black Law Students Association. I currently sit on the board of directors as a member at large. Like, get involved, get out of yourself, and you'll find a support system, a network. Like the friends that I've made in law school, I promise you I wouldn't have gotten as far as I have but for them. They've seen a lot. We've gone through a lot together. It's been a journey in and of itself. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. In law school, there's a lot, and you'll figure out what your limits are, and you'll learn to push past them. It's just the name of this game. I wouldn't go back and change a thing in my journey. I appreciate every no, every yes, every it depends. Everything has got me to where I am now. And so when I decided to do this episode for you guys, I wanted to be as transparent as possible. I would typically do like the listener letters. Please make sure you guys submit your listener letters to alexanderthegreatpod@gmail.com for future episodes. But I didn't feel right starting a new season without giving you guys the reality of at least my journey leading up to almost getting away with this JD. But it felt that I needed to level and let you guys know that my journey was not easy. Your journey may not be easy. Some other people's journey around you might be easier than yours. That's okay. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's story is different. I've said this in a previous episode in season 1, and I'm going to say it again. Find your why. Why do you want to be a lawyer? Why do you want to be an advocate? Who are you advocating for? What is your purpose? When you figure out the answer to those questions, even in your lowest moment, because there will be some, you're going to find a way to push through. It's, I'm not going to say this on camera. Never mind. It's a different journey than what I think most are used to. And even if for those who have been through other journeys, it's incomparable. It just is. But you learn a lot. And I do think it is worth it, despite the bullshit, for lack of better terms, despite the age-old systematic barriers that are in the legal profession. There are ways for you to prevail, and there are people who want to see you succeed. I want everybody watching this to succeed. So if you ever need something from me, or you just want to talk, or you want to vent, like, hit me up. You can hit me up on the How to Get Away with the JD page. You can follow me at Faye_Diggs on literally all social media. The Law School Mentor, I know Yoshi does like a lot of this. Like, he has attorneys come on. You want to start building your network, because you'll never know who you might meet or what you might say that might change your life, their life, or somebody's day at the very least. So yeah, man, that is the journey. Here we are, 3L year. We're almost out the door. We're halfway through the semester. That's crazy. Soon the bar that should be gone by now will be upon us, and there is that. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the first episode of season 2. Like I said, this season I have a lot of intentional conversations that we're going to be touching on. So make sure, I love the loves, I love the subscriptions, I like all of that, comments and all. Share with a friend. The biggest thing you can do for somebody is share this with a friend, because you'll never know who might think about law school, like looking into, like, just needs help. So yeah, thanks guys. Can't wait to see you for the rest of the season. Welcome back to season 2 of How to Get Away with a JD. It's your boy Phelan, and I am looking forward to taking you on this season's journey because I've got a couple of cool things in store for you guys.